President Trump's approval rating in our poll is 51%, still in positive territory, but by a smaller margin than he had a month ago. And on his approval on the issues, it's a mixed bag. A slim majority of voters approve of his handling of the border and the economy, while a slim majority disapprove of his handling of inflation. And we're joined now by our elections and surveys director, Anthony Salvanto. You asked about a host of issues, Anthony. Before this explosive Oval Office exchange, you did ask Americans how they're assessing the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. What did you learn?
Yeah, morning, Margaret. You can look at Ukraine and Russia and the conflict and then see a wider worldview that Americans have. So let me start with this. Aid to Ukraine specifically divides the country, divides it along partisan lines, and it has for a while. Democrats more in favor, Republicans more opposed. But then you ask people, okay, who do you support in the conflict? Just over half say they support Ukraine, and the rest say they're neutral, that the U.S. should stay out. Now, where this comes back to the administration is the people who say they're neutral are more approving of how Donald Trump is handling all this. The people who say they back Ukraine, in addition to supporting aid, feel that Trump's actions have favored Russia in this conflict. Now, let's take a look at views on Russia. And the big majority calls Russia either an enemy or unfriendly. It's a little less so among Republicans, but then widen out to how the U.S. should act on the world stage. Views of our European allies. By and large, Americans call them allies, or at the very least friendlies, Great Britain, France, Germany, etc. Now, what should the U.S. actually do? The big majority is cooperate with allies on the world stage. Those folks tend to be less approving of the changes that they see Donald Trump making to U.S. foreign policy.
So back to the key issue, the economy. How are Americans perceiving what the president is doing on that, as well as his cuts to the federal workforce?
Well, on the point about cuts, let's start with this sort of central premise about is there waste in the federal government? By and large, Americans agree that there is. The difference is, where does it come from? If I ask people, is it poor spending choices? Is it fraud? Well, you get more Democrats saying it probably comes from poor spending choices, Republicans saying it comes from fraud. And then that goes into a split on the changes he's making in the federal workforce. That divides the country. And you start to see people looking at it and wondering about what the implications of this might be. So I ask, is this going to have an effect? There's a lot of people who say, yes, it will have an effect on cutting services that they like, an effect on their local area. But there's also just as many who say it's going to save taxpayer money. It's going to eliminate waste. And when I see that wide span of answers, what my sense is people are anticipating a lot of things. They're unsure at this point, but they are definitely looking and waiting to see what they believe will be an impact.
Anthony Salvanto, thank you very much.
Thank you.